MIAA Monday rolls on with MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy. Sir, thank you once again for coming on, and always enjoy the conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you again. The weeks are flying by quickly, Chris. Now that we're in the season, and but it's good to spend Monday with you again, and appreciate you having me on.
You mentioned it. Everything's kind of flying by. It's hard to believe we're already in the first full week of October now, and you look across not just football, but you look at volleyball, soccer, tennis, cross country. I mean, golf. You look at everything, just kind of how things are rolling. There's a lot of really good MIAA teams nationally ranked again this year after that layoff last year of really not knowing how maybe teams stacked up. They kind of left off right where they were in 2019. A lot of top-ranked teams across a lot of sports here in the fall so far.
Yeah, I think it's great, Chris, that it doesn't seem like we've missed a beat. We've come back in all of the fall sports, very competitive. I'm really excited for a number of our student athletes that had their fall seasons canceled last year. And the ones that were seniors, it would have felt really incomplete to have that be the end of your collegiate career. So we've got a number of student athletes that are competing this year as I guess we're calling them COVID seniors, and some are in grad school. There's a young lady playing on the top-ranked Washburn Ichabod's women's volleyball team that's a starter on the number one ranked team in the country, who's also going to law school. So we've got student athletes that are finding a way to continue their education, but they want to compete. They want to compete at the highest levels. That's what they get to do in the MIAA, and it's just it's real exciting to see all of our teams back, and many of them doing well, and some of them doing very well at the national level.
What does this maybe say about the MIAA? I mean, of course, other conferences have top teams across the league, across the country too, but volleyball, we'll take that one for instance. Just so many top, MIAA programs in the top 25 throughout this year. Soccer too. I mean, there's been quite a few roll through there too. Just what does it say about the type of student athletes, coaches, and everything that kind of makes up the MIAA?
Well, I think the thing that's exciting is that we don't have just one dominant school, and we're not just a football conference, or we're not just a men's basketball conference. So it's nice to see really from top to bottom, sport to sport. We've got schools and universities that are very competitive, and certainly within our region and nationally, ranked very high. And we like to think that just about every sport, the MIAA starts every academic year with a team or two that's going to make a run at a national championship. And we've had some teams that have the last couple of years fallen just a little short. 2 years ago, Washburn University in volleyball was a runner-up, playing for the national title. Last spring, Central Missouri finished runner-up in baseball. So it's just sport to sport, top to bottom. It's just a great conference to be a part of when we've got teams at universities that commit like they do to being excellent, and coaches and student athletes to perform.
You kind of briefly mentioned basketball there, not just being a basketball conference, but hard to believe we're October 4th, and now we're getting ready to talk basketball in the midst of fall sports season, and football only halfway through the season. Volleyball, soccer, still plenty to go too. But MIAA Basketball Media Day right around the corner. Last year's it was virtual, I believe. Yeah, if I remember correctly, yeah. It's kind of been a long year for some of these things.
Yep.
But MIAA Basketball Media Day back this year. It's right around the corner, and get to go back in person, don't we?
Yeah, we do, and we're excited about that. We'll be back again next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, October 12th. We'll be back at the College Basketball Experience right next to the T-Mobile Center. That was formerly the Sprint Center. But if any, folks that have been in the college basketball experience understand how special a facility that is, and what a great thing to be located in Kansas City. That tells the story of college basketball, houses the College Basketball Hall of Fame, and a great place for MIAA basketball to tip off the year. And we're one of the few Division II conferences that still do this in person. We did an in-person media day for football. We're doing one in-person media day for men's and women's basketball. And I think it's important that our conference take time to start the season and celebrate our universities, our coaches, our student athletes, put a spotlight on them. Many in the MIAA recognize, it's still the fall sports season. They're still watching football, volleyball, soccer on the MIAA network, but next Tuesday, we're going to put a spotlight on basketball, and it's great, I think, for us to get together like this and celebrate and look back at last year. And it was a great year. We crowned another national champion in men's basketball with Northwest Missouri State. In women's basketball, Chris, we had 3 different institutions that won championships. I think, if I remember right, Fort Hays State won our women's basketball conference championship. Nebraska Kearney won the tournament championship. And then Central Missouri won the regional championship to go to the Elite Eight. And so, we've got great institutions. Northwest Missouri on the men's side wins the national championship, but they finished runner-up in the conference tournament to Washburn University. So we'll celebrate last year, but we'll really spend a lot of time looking forward to this year and what our MIAA fans will see from men's and women's basketball teams.
Just like with football, it kind of feels like the kickoff of kind of returning to what we're used to in 2019. With football media day, we kind of rolled right into games. Basketball kind of feels like that too, that this media day, it's only a few blocks away from Municipal Auditorium. Municipal is just a few blocks west of the college basketball experience, right there by the T-Mobile Center. Just how much does kind of feel like, okay, maybe things are starting to kind of get going again with in-person media day and kind of going towards basketball season, kind of hopefully like we did last year too?
I think it means that, things are getting back to normal, and our MIAA fans are certainly excited about the season. We had this past weekend at Fort Hays State University, they had a record crowd for their homecoming game against Nebraska Kearney in football. And it was a battle to the end. I think Fort Hays State took the lead finally with about a minute to go. But just a huge crowd at Hays to watch football. And I anticipate, that hopefully we'll see the same thing in basketball, Chris. Big crowds on campus to come out and watch MIAA action. And if fans are still reluctant to be in a big crowd, they'll be able to follow all the action on the MIAA network. And then we're certainly hopeful with the basketball tournament again at Municipal Auditorium in early March to start off Kansas City's version of March Madness, that we'll have big crowds at Municipal cheering on the men's and women's conference basketball tournament.
Yeah, looking forward to kicking everything off with the media day next Tuesday down there at the college basketball experience, down in Kansas City. I want to get into a topic that we're probably going to get into the weeds a little bit here of just kind of everything we've kind of talked about all summer long. NIL, the Supreme Court cases that went on with the NCAA and student athletes. Looking here, the General Counsel for the National Labor Relations Board sending out the memo, and you've already seen this obviously, but the view that college athletes have statutory rights consistent with employee recognition under the Act. that kind of opens things up maybe to interpretation. I guess it's going to be kind of muddy waters again. What do you take away from, just the General Counsel and the NLRB saying that?
Not a good day for college sports. That news broke last week, and this is really an impact of a couple of years of really looking at some issues involving some student athletes. I think primarily football student athletes at Northwestern, outside of Chicago, private university in the Big Ten Conference, wanting to start a student athlete union and obviously bargain and negotiate for student athlete rights in the same way that a faculty union or any other bargaining agency would have rights as an employee and viewed as an employee with standing. And last week the National Labor Relations Board, as you indicated, their General Counsel came out related to the Northwestern case and said, my viewpoint is that in these type of situations where the NLRB is going to be involved in litigation and future investigations, we're going to view student athletes as employees. And in fact, she went on to say that she's not a real fan of the term student athlete. She indicated that term will not be permitted in issues before her with investigations and litigation, and she prefers the term player as opposed to student athlete. So on its face, Chris, just another really game-changing announcement as it relates to college sports. The idea that student athletes would be looked at as an employee and their university as the employer, and all of the things that come with that, really just changes fundamentally, the academic foundation of what the collegiate experience is all about. We've dove into this a little bit, Chris, and there's some fine points that we've shared with our institutions, I think, that are, worth noting. One is that, the actual jurisdiction of the National Labor Relations Board as it relates to colleges and universities really over just private colleges and universities. Public universities are governed by their state labor agencies and obviously state legislation. It doesn't mean that our public universities should dismiss this as really no big deal, but as far as the jurisdiction, the National Labor Relations Board, it just really extends to private universities, and in the MIAA, that would be really just associate member Newman University in Wichita, Kansas. All of our other full members, associate members are public regional campuses, universities. The second thing, Chris, on the memo itself, this General Counsel, she can't, through this memo, really change the authority that the National Labor Relations Board has over colleges and universities. She obviously has some authority related to investigations and litigation, but actually the way that the National Labor Relations Board and how they view the situation, the General Counsel doesn't have a vote. There are 5 voting members, I think, of the National Labor Relations Board, and they would have to vote as a group to really codify something like this. And then the last thing, is there's a lot of things that would go into whether or not a group of students would be able to form a union and create kind of a collective bargaining unit. And whether certain students are able to do that, other students aren't, what state restrictions are in place from that happening. State law would come into play. I think courts would look at the Division I experience very different than the Division II and Division III experience. So there would be a lot that would have to happen before we would see a world where the Emporia State football team would be able to go on strike and have demands that must be met if they're going to play the Turnpike Tussle against Washburn on Saturday. So there's a lot of things that would have to progress. But, on its face, it was not, it's not good news. It's not the type of trend that you want to see, whether it's courts or attorneys or the Congress. We've spent a lot of time since we've been doing this podcast about these, this interference from courts and judges and congressional action, interference with college athletics and our ability to govern and create the experience that we've known for many, many years. So it's a challenging, interesting time for the NCAA and for college sports, and it's just another item that we're going to have to stay on top of.
Going with this, does this add another layer to whenever, and we've talked about it, I don't remember how many episodes ago it was, we talked about when the NCAA meets and starts discussing the Constitution and everything else. Does this add another layer to all that, just based on it, maybe more so for Division I, but does that trickle down too at some point maybe?
Yeah, I think it certainly does, and it puts another layer on concerns that some in Division I have, whether they can continue to operate with governance and regulatory decisions being made by a national governing body like the NCAA, or are big time conferences better off handling those issues more independently and at the local level or the conference level. So that's exactly what this constitutional review is by the NCAA, and this is just one other piece of information that has to be considered as they're kind of working through those scenarios.
You mentioned that we're a long ways off from the MIAA and say in Emporia State or in Washburn, Missouri Western, anybody else having strike-related issues with their student athletes. What would be the snowball effect here that directly would impact Division II? Would it be all coming from, does Division I break off to conferences, or is that maybe the most direct thing that could happen from this layer being added on to the constitutional review?
Chris, I think that, one of the things that Division I has to continue to consider, even in this perhaps new structure where they have more of these, more autonomy at the local level, more decision-making at the conference level, that a full breakaway from the NCAA for the Southeastern Conference or the Pac-12s of the world, I think still creates unique challenges for those schools from just a public image and also, a taxation. I think those schools have benefited historically from being part of an association like the NCAA that is as diverse as it is, but all members, embracing this foundational element of, the nexus with academics and that the student athletes are students and they are pursuing degrees. So there are those elements that I think override these autonomy discussions and the ability to kind of work around some of these congressional or legal issues that we've been seeing So my hope is that we find a way to stay together as an association, that Division One has some relief that they can address some of these issues more at the local level, but we're still going to see NCAA championships and still have a governing body, NCAA, that takes care of student athlete health and safety related issues, playing rules in the sports that we have, those types of things. But it's a challenge, and as we've talked, Chris, the timeline to get some of these issues addressed, it's not a 1 or a 2 year project. The NCAA Board of Governors has stated that they're going to have some direction for the membership by mid-November, and then a vote by the membership in mid-January on kind of what a new NCAA might look like. So things are happening quickly, and it's really a result of how quickly some of these other issues that we continue to talk about, whether it's the Supreme Court case or name, image, likeness, or now the National Labor Relations Board interpretation, all of these are coming at the association quickly, and the membership is trying to figure out what does all this mean. So we've got to get our act together and figure out what the new NCAA might look like.
And that's where I was kind of going to go with this too. For you, the MIAA Division II, what's the role that you guys are having to play in this discussion? Because we look at the NILs, we talked about it, most of those will probably be Division I. We've seen quite a few Division II get NILs, but not to the level of the Division Is, of the Alabamas and stuff like that. And a lot of these cases are pertaining to Division I institutions. So I guess what's your guys' role of kind of maybe keeping Division II intact, because there is a different level to Division II than Division I, like we've talked about before?
Yeah, this process has played out the last few months where there's a small working group of about 30 people that form the NCAA Constitution Committee. They're doing all of the heavy lifting and the brainstorming and trying to process all of that. We have 5 representatives from Division II. One of them is Jim Johnson, the athletic director at Pittsburgh State. So we're well represented. The MIAA is well represented at these meetings. And one of the things that Jim has shared with me is that, the comments from Division I and Division III is that in the current structure, it looks like Division II has its act together. It looks like the membership is kind of all on the same page, that the structure works, that the support we get from the NCAA is sufficient and appreciated. So I think D1 and D3 maybe have some things that they might be able to learn or take from Division II. But our position, the division's position in all of these discussions is first finding a way to keep us all together. It's important that we don't go our separate ways, so we don't end up with 3 unique different associations. There's value in keeping the NCAA as a whole, to keep divisional separation and different types of experiences. That we believe in Division II. There are a couple of foundational elements like a balanced student experience, playing games in communities that support and are connected to our institutions. Those are things that are just part of our philosophy as a division, and we don't want to lose that. So, I think part of our role in Division II is peacemaker and deal maker, and helping D1 and D3 find what might be missing in the association, or what needs to change, or what revisions need to occur, but allowing that to happen in a way that we all can stay together under an NCAA umbrella and continue to have exciting regular seasons and obviously great NCAA championship experiences.
Last question for you, and I'll let you get out of here. You talk about Division II kind of having everything in place. Is that rare for the entire division to kind of be like, okay, we got everything, we got to help the other two divisions, or does that kind of happen sometimes, whether it's Division I and the other two, or Division III and the other two, or is Division II just kind of figured out what's worked right now in the model that we have?
I think it's the latter. I think that the last time the NCAA went through something like this, Chris, was back in the mid 1990s, and for the past 25 years, I think we've seen Division II grow from about 170 schools to about 310, 315 schools right now. So it's almost doubled in size. It's the only division that has schools in Alaska and Puerto Rico. It's got, I think, 3 of the 4 NCAA campuses in Hawaii. It stretches from New Mexico to Maine and from Washington to Florida, east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi. An equal number of schools. It's about a 50-50 split on public-private. So, Division II has just found a way. It's got schools with, under 1,000 enrollment, schools, close to 20,000 students. So it's a very diverse division, but it's just found a way to use a governance model that gives every school an equal vote, one vote when we come together each year at the convention, and a model and championships that's regionally focused to help schools, be fiscally responsible and not bankrupt a college or a university with athletic expenses. And it's just found a way the last 25 years to thrive and to do well and to, for the most part, get along as a membership group. So I think it's just a collection of schools that have taken advantage of the structure that was developed back in the 90s. And I think schools positioned today, Chris, that we'd like to protect what we have, but if there are concessions and things that we need to do a little different to help Division I and Division III be happy, those are the conversations that are taking place right now.
MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy, it should be a very interesting 6 to 12 weeks in the NCAA and across all 3 divisions, but a pleasure to have you on again this week talking all things MIAA, all things Division II and the NCAA, of course.
Yeah, good to see you, Chris. Thanks. Look forward to talking to you next week.
Yep, see you next week. Thank you.